Okay, so this is the transformation form, and on your test I would give you this formula. Okay, so what kinds of things do we know about the multiplier A? What could it do? If it's positive, what do I know? My parabola is this. And what happens if A is negative? It could flip it. So that's one word that could happen. It could flip it. What if A is bigger than 1? What would happen to my parabola shape?
Narrow.
It would narrow. So that's another word. When I ask for this, I say, what are the words of what's going on? And what if A was smaller than 1? It would widen. So those are the 3 word possibilities. If you see an A, it might flip it, it might narrow it, it might widen it. Okay, the number in the bracket is a direction, left, right, up, down. So what does this do? The left, right stuff or the up, down stuff? Left, right. And should I do that pattern as what I see or opposite of what I see? So if I see x plus 3 squared, what should I do? I need to move left. And the k, that would move stuff. How? So up and down. And it would be the same or in the opposite of what I would see? I would do stuff in the same way. So if I see a plus 5 at the end of an equation, I would move up 5. Okay. On your test, you will have a big question like this. Okay, so the vertex, look above. What's the vertex? Looking at your equation from above. Right on the paper, when you look at just this, what is your vertex? There's a 4 and a 6. Which comes first, the 4 part or the 6 part? The 4 part comes first because it's connected to the x. Is it the same or the opposite 4? Opposite, so positive 4. Then the 6 part comes next. Is it the same or the opposite when you write? Same. So that was opposite and same. What is the slope? What is the multiplier number in the front of things? 1. What is the domain of any parabola? Infinity. Negative infinity. You have to write it in that order because it goes left to right, always. For me to understand range, which direction is my parabola? Is it an up, like a U, or is it flipped? It's up because my slope is positive 1. So the range goes from some height, then infinity, right? That's how I'm thinking of it now. Or I'm also going to understand that this is a minimum, right? So you have mins or maxes. This would be a minimum. So what is the lowest height number? -6 with a square bracket. And then up, up, up. So the axis of symmetry is that symmetric line. If you could just slice it right in half and fold it over, it would be perfect. What do you always start that line with? X equals makes vertical lines. What is the x number that you would cut right through? You would cut through the 4, because it's the vertex number, right? Okay, what is the definition of a y-intercept?
X equals 0.
Where x equals 0, so that's what you're doing. So y equals 0, subtract 4 squared minus 6. So you told me to say x equals 0, so I put a 0 in place of the x in the equation. And now this is math stuff. You got to figure out what it all comes out to be. So brackets, this is all BEDMAS, -4. And then when you square it, what happens to -4? Positive 16 minus 6 equals 10. Okay, now back to, let's graph. What is my basic over-up chart when I always start no matter what?
1,
1,
2, 4, 3, 9.
1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. And do I keep that or do I need to change that on this question? Keep it. Slope is 1, so you don't have to do anything different. So for -6, draw me a point because that's your vertex. And then you're going to do over 1, up 1. When you're doing your pattern, what do you always need to do? Reset. Go back to the vertex. When I'm grading your graphs, I look for arrows. You might lose some points if you didn't draw me arrows. I probably would deduct you if yours looked really super pointy. Like that. I would deduct you if yours looked really pointy. Okay, here's a good thing to check. You told me your y-intercept was 10. Does our pattern look like that would work? Yeah. Let's just pretend somebody did their math wrong, because I could have seen this happening. If somebody did -4 squared wrong in their calculator like that, it would come out -16 minus 6, which they would have wrote me -22. If that was you, because you just typed it wrong in your calculator, would you have realized your y-intercept of -22? Doesn't make sense. You see it? There's no way this is going to cross the y-axis at -22, right? So make those connections. That stuff happens, but then you can always look, well, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Okay, the vertex, I would probably be looking at my formula sheet, comparing it to this on my formula sheet. So on the test, I have this available for me to look at. So what is my vertex? So I'm going to use the numbers with a 7 and a 1. Which comes first, the 7 or the 1? The 1 part. Is it opposite or same 1?
Opposite.
So +1. And then that means the 7 part comes next. Opposite or same? Opposite. So -7. And the slope multiplier number is 2, which I'm quickly going to draw my sketch at the range that if it's 2, this thing is opening upward. 2 tells me it will open up. So the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity, right? So that's always. And if this thing is opening up, you are going to have a minimum. And then the lowest height I see is -7 to infinity. Axis of symmetry is me cutting it vertically. So x equals the number. Did you pick 1? Because it goes through your vertex. Okay, y-intercept is where x equals 0. That's the definition. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll let you calculate that, because I will see if we're good with our how we're typing this in, or I need a number for y. Can you solve for y? Get me the number for it. Did you get -5 at the very end of it? Okay, because this was -1, squared was +1, times 2 is 2, but I still have to subtract 7, right, to isolate? Okay, so let's graph 1, -7 is your vertex. And you're going to make a pattern to graph. So all you need is a vertex and a slope pattern. I'm going to start 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. But I'm not going to do that maneuver. Bless you. Because my slope is 2. So what am I going to do to the chart now? Times the up pattern, the heights, by 2. So this is 2, 8, 18. So I went over 1, up 2. And on your test, I asked for 5 coordinates. So I'm going to have to do another set here. So over 2 and up 8. And then that's good on my test. I have 5 coordinates. And you know what's even better on my test? When I check my y-intercept, and look at that, went right through it. So there's a -5 graphically, and there was our algebra on -5. Okay, number 3 looks completely different. So on your formula sheet, if I look, I'd say, oh, well, it looks like this equation. That's what it looks like on my formula sheet, because I would have that in front of me. So what do I do?
Negative b.
Negative b over 2a. So HK was that other stuff. This is negative b over 2a. So negative b should be +6, right? +6. 2 times -1. So again, if you type this into your calculator, you're going to want it to look like this, because you need brackets to say it's dividing by that whole thing on the bottom. Okay, so I got -3. I need every single person to have their calculator out. You're going to plug that in, because I have one similar to this on the test, and I get 25% of the students make an error on it because of how they're plugging it in. And the confusion is what to do with this -1 and then a -3. Well, this -1 is separated. So you should do -1 like that when you plug it in. Does that make sense why it would be a little bit confusing? Because there's a negative and then there's a -3 for the x. So there's lots of negatives going on, but this negative is disconnected like that from the -3 squared. Anybody feeling super confident in their number?
Yes.
12? Okay, if you are not getting 12 at some point, maybe you want to tap me on the shoulder and say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong in my calculator, because that's important. Some of you might not have calculators that let you type it in so nicely. I just got rid of somebody with a backwards calculator because that would be very confusing for them. Okay, what is my slope number? What's my multiplier number?
Oh, 3.
Not
No.
3. -1.
Oh, dang.
-1. If I was to say how many x squareds do you have, that's what you would have. Same with up here, right? If I ever FOILed this out and then distributed the 2, this would end up with a 2x squared in it. 2x squared, it's the multiplier number. Okay, domain -∞ to infinity. Hopefully you all just get that point on your test. The slope is negative, so this is my visual thinking now, because it's flipped. Now, because I have some questions like this on a test, just is it a min or a max? If it's flipped, it will have a max, right? So looking at the slope tells you what shape you are, and then what shape you are tells you if you have a min or a max. So how do I write this? -∞ is the low, up to a max height of 12. Axis of symmetry. X equals -3. A y-intercept is where x equals 0. So what's the answer? Just like that. 3.
That's what,
Yeah.
I meant to say.
So you really don't need all that, but that's the understanding of once you plug the 0 in, you just get that number at the end. Okay, so let's put, oh, I didn't do this very well. -3, 12. I'm sorry, we're like up there.
Well,
Negative 3 comma 12. I'm off the grid here. I'm sorry. So you'd be up there. And I guess we need a pattern here. So 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9.
No. I was surprised. Everywhere.
But we said the slope was negative 1. So all those numbers are just negative. So go over 1, down 1, which I'm still off the chart. Over 2, down 4. What height do you actually get to? If you were at 8, or sorry, I gave you the answer. If you were at 12
8.
and you went down 4, this one would be at a height of 8.
Simple take the freebie.
Mental math.
So which height is the next set of points at? You'd have to go down 9. So remember, original 12. So now the next points would be over, down 9. Look at that. Guess what makes you always feel good with your math? Is when your y-intercept is in the right spot. Because everything needs to connect. Okay, number 4 is just find the vertex. And I'm going to write these so you can refer to them. So this is your formula sheet. Okay. I want you to tell me just the vertex. And I probably will give you a suggestion here. Here's my hint. There's some zeros involved on some of them if it's looking confusing. That's why.
Negative 5, 0.
So I'm going to get you to do them on your own, and then I'll tell you what they are. Okay? Tell me what those 3 vertices are. All right, so the first one, I would probably connect it to that to compare it to. And so this would be opposite, so positive 5. And then looking at the after, there's no number there. So then this would be 0. Okay, the second one, I'm going to refer to the top equation here. And then I'm going to note to myself, there's just an x squared. So that means h didn't exist. If there's just an x squared, there's no h in there. So that is 0. And then the 6, I just have to make sure I do as a opposite or same? Opposite. So 0, comma 6. Okay, and the last one, you could have looked at it like that or that. So if you had looked at it like this, you would have said, oh, there's just an x squared. So 0. And then the plus 2 at the end. If you had looked at it like this, then what do you do with negative b over 2a? What is the b value? 0. There's no x term, so that's why you get 0. And when you plug 0 in, you get 2. Okay? So that is on your test. So on your test, you would have a question that would look like this and like this. So this is standard, this is general. I give you all these. You have to get the vertex, the slope, the graph, domain, range, intercepts. There would be a question like that on your test.